What if I told you the world has always been chaos? It just hides it better now. Every headline screams panic. Every feed floods you with outrage. Every day pulls your mind in 1,000 directions. You feel overwhelmed because you think the world is louder. In truth, you are overwhelmed because your mind has forgotten how to be still. Marcus Aurelius lived through war, plague, betrayal, and loss. And yet, in the middle of collapse, he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That one line is the Stoic rule for surviving chaos. When the world shakes, return to your mind. Guard it like a fortress, because everything can be taken from you. Your wealth, your health, your peace, but not your control over your response. We think chaos is new. It is not. It just wears a modern mask: notifications, noise, opinions, illusions of control. The Stoics faced their chaos in blood and fire. We face ours in distraction and anxiety. But the principle remains the same. Survival is not about changing the world. It is about mastering your perception of it. The Stoics knew no storm could drown a man who has trained the mind to stay calm in the flood. That is why they never sought peace through escape. They found it through endurance. They didn't build walls around them. They built walls within them. Because the real battlefield is never out there. It is inside when life feels like it's spiraling. Your instinct is to fight, to fix, to control everything slipping through your fingers. But the more you grab, the faster it falls. The Stoic does the opposite. He pauses. He breathes. He observes what's truly under his control. His judgment, his actions, his attitude, and releases the rest. This isn't weakness, it's discipline. The discipline to choose peace when chaos invites panic. Epictetus was born a slave, crippled, beaten, and humiliated. And yet he taught freedom, he said. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That line isn't motivation, it is armor. Because once you accept that truth, no storm can break you. You can lose everything and still remain unshaken. The modern mind chases stability in unstable things. Money, status, validation. The Stoic anchors it in one place. The present moment. Marcus reminded himself every day. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That wasn't morbid. That was focus. When you remember how temporary everything is, chaos loses its grip. You stop wasting energy on what doesn't matter. The world has always been on fire. But there are two kinds of people in the fire, those who panic and those who breathe. The difference isn't luck, it is training. The Stoics trained every day, not in comfort but in control. They practiced silence when the world shouted, gratitude when life took things away, and acceptance when everything fell apart. And this is where you must start. Don't wait for life to calm down. It won't. Don't wait for clarity. You build it. Begin where you are, right now, in the noise, in the fear, in the uncertainty, and practice control over yourself. That is the Stoic rule for surviving chaos. Hold your peace when the world loses theirs, because in the end, chaos doesn't destroy those who face it. It reveals them. When chaos hits, your very first instinct will always be to react, to fix, to defend, to lash out. The Stoics taught that it is reaction that is the real enemy, not the event itself. They believed that most people are slaves, not to chains or to rulers, but to their own impulses. In chaos, that slavery becomes obvious. The one who panics first loses. Marcus Aurelius was met with rebellion, betrayal, and plague, yet he began each day writing to himself, "Today you will meet people who are ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, jealous, and selfish. None of this can harm you." That wasn't cynicism. It was preparation. He understood that chaos doesn't warn you before it arrives, so you must be mentally trained before it comes. The Stoics had a simple ritual, the morning reflection. Before dawn, they would visualize everything that could go wrong: loss, pain, insult, failure, not to invite suffering, but to immunize the mind. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortune. They believed that if you confront chaos in your mind before it happens, you will remain calm when it does. A warrior sharpens his blade before the battle, not during it. The modern man wakes up and reaches for his phone. The Stoic woke up and reached for his mind. He didn't let the world dictate his state. He dictated it to himself. Because the moment you hand your peace to the world, you are already defeated. You become reactive, a puppet to circumstance. A slave to the unpredictable. Stoicism breaks that chain by returning power to where it belongs, within. Epictetus taught his students, when something happens, the only thing in your power is your attitude toward it. Can you imagine that? A slave who was being beaten and insulted assured himself he was free because his mind was his own. That is what the Stoic rule is. Control your perception, and you control your world. When there is chaos, it is perception that becomes the first casualty. Panic clouds reason. Emotion distorts truth. The Stoic counters that by slowing down, in a world screaming for his reaction, he chooses pause. That pause is power. It is the gap that allows wisdom to enter. It is the space where you decide who you'll be, not just what you'll do. Every second you delay your reaction, you weaken chaos's grip on you. Consider the most calm person you've ever met. He is not calm because life is easy. He is calm because he has accepted the difficulty of life. He has stopped resisting what he can't control and focused his energy on what he can. His efforts, his focus, his mind. That is what sets the Stoic off from the restless. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And he was right. Most chaos is born not in the world, but in your thoughts about it. The future you fear, the insult you replay, the outcome you dread, all of it exists in the mind before it ever touches reality. So the Stoic learns to discipline imagination. He refuses to let fear build catastrophes that don't exist. Because most people don't live their lives, they live their worries. The way to survive chaos is by learning to think clearly when others cannot. The Stoics call this euthymia, inner steadiness, the art of remaining aligned with your purpose no matter what happens around you. Marcus described it as keeping the soul straight. It means not letting the world's noise distort your values. In chaos, people lose themselves. They break their word, abandon their integrity, lash out to regain control. The Stoic doesn't. He endures without corruption. That is real strength. The world is going to test you. It always has. There'll be betrayal, loss, injustice. You'll be misunderstood, mocked, ignored, but if you respond to it all with the same discipline, calm mind, right action, steady purpose, you become untouchable. Chaos stops being a threat and becomes training. Because, here is the paradox, chaos doesn't end when you find peace. You find peace because you've stopped needing chaos to end. The Stoics had a very radical idea about this. Chaos is not your enemy. It is your instructor. For them, life doesn't punish you. It trains you. Every hardship, every uncertainty, every collapse is a lesson dressed in pain. The weak look only at the wound, but the wise look for the wisdom hidden inside it. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal from his generals, disease that ravaged his empire, and personal grief that would have broken most men. Yet, in his darkest hour, he wrote, "The obstacle is the way." That wasn't metaphor. It was survival. He was teaching himself to turn every problem into practice. Every obstacle became a drill in strength, patience, and acceptance. This is the Stoic rule for surviving chaos. Don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask, "What is this teaching me?" Because chaos doesn't destroy you. It exposes you. It shows you where you are weak, where you are attached, where you still depend on outcomes to feel safe. And once you see that, you can begin to free yourself. Epictetus taught his students that adversity was the universe's training program. Difficulties show what men are, he said. Good fortune deceives. When life is easy, you think you are strong. Only when it gets hard do you find out. Chaos is the mirror that shows you who you really are and who you still need to become. Most people pray for comfort. The Stoic prayed for clarity. Because comfort hides your potential, chaos reveals it. The more the world falls apart around you, the more your inner order is tested. And that is when you find out if your peace was real or just borrowed from circumstance. Think of the mind as a fortress. Chaos will always test its walls. Every insult, setback, and uncertainty is an arrow hitting your defenses. When your peace depends on the world remaining still, the walls shatter. But when your peace relies upon discipline, awareness, and acceptance, then nothing can really breach it. This is a fortress the Stoic built brick by brick through the day practice of writing, reflecting, observing, and enduring. Fire tests gold, adversity tests the brave. Seneca told his friend Lucilius. Of course, he didn't mean that one should suffer for the sake of suffering, but he meant to use pain as polish. The Stoic doesn't run from hardship, he refines himself through it. Each difficulty becomes material for virtue, patience, courage, humility. The chaos doesn't go away, but your relationship with it changes. What once terrified you now strengthens you. You see, chaos teaches through repetition. It brings the same lessons back until you learn them. You lose control again and again until you finally accept that you never had it. You get hurt again and again until you learn to stop giving others the power to wound you. You fall apart until you understand that breaking is not the end. It is transformation. This is what the Stoics knew. You can't control the storm, but you can learn to be the sailor who isn't afraid of waves. Chaos is the sea, unpredictable and wild. Most people drown because they fight the current. The Stoic learns how to navigate it. He uses the wind instead of cursing it. He steers, calmly, eyes forward. No matter how rough it gets, in the noise of the world, chaos is fed by one thing: reaction. Every time you overthink, every time you argue, every time you panic, chaos wins. But every time you are still, you take back your power. That is why stillness is not passivity. It is power. It is the refusal to be pulled into the madness around you. The modern world rewards distraction. The Stoic world rewards discipline. And discipline is born only in friction. When you wake up anxious, when plans collapse, when people disappoint you, those are not punishments. They're invitations to practice control, perspective, and presence. To the Stoics, hardship was sacred because it purified the soul. Chaos stripped away illusion. It forced them to confront truth. The truth that peace has nothing to do with the world and everything to do with the mind. So when your world falls apart, don't curse it, sit with it. Ask yourself, what is this revealing about me? What is this strengthening in me? What false peace is this chaos destroying? That is the lesson, because chaos doesn't arrive to ruin you, it arrives to rebuild you. The Stoics never confused peace with passivity. They didn't hide from the world to find calm. They entered the storm and remained unbroken. They understood that action, when guided by reason, is not chaos, it is order in motion. That is why Marcus Aurelius, in the middle of war, didn't retreat into philosophy. He lived it. He led armies while practicing compassion. He ruled an empire while reminding himself, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. To the Stoics, surviving chaos meant not waiting for it to end, but acting rightly within it. They believed that the world doesn't calm down so you can begin. You begin, and that is what brings calm. The act of doing what is right, without the noise of ego or fear, was their anchor. The modern world calls for comfort. The Stoic calls for character. As Seneca wrote, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. To crave control over everything amidst chaos is poverty of the soul. The Stoic abandons that craving. He asks only one thing of himself, to do his duty with excellence, regardless of result. When the future is uncertain, he acts with clarity. When outcomes are impossible to predict, he still moves with integrity. His actions are not based on guarantees, but on principles. That is how they survived chaos, by narrowing the battlefield. They stopped fighting what they couldn't change and focused entirely on what they could. You can't control whether people respect you, but you can control whether you live with honor. You can't control the storm, but you can steer your ship. You can't control time, but you can choose how you spend it. As Epictetus put it, first, say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. That is the Stoic code. So decide who you are. Calm, just disciplined, courageous, and then act that way, above all when life tries to make you forget. Since chaos doesn't take your peace away, it only tempts you to abandon it. Every time you choose discipline over reaction, silence over argument, and focus over distraction, you win this unseen war. The Stoics knew that sometimes victory didn't look like triumph. It looked like restraint. Sometimes it is walking away. Sometimes it is doing the right thing when nobody notices. That quiet strength makes you unstoppable. In a collapsing world, the Stoic doesn't crumble because his foundation isn't built on circumstances. It is built on choice. He doesn't wait for inspiration. He doesn't wait for motivation. He acts, Marcus reminded himself every day. Stop wandering. You weren't made to live like this, but to act with purpose. That purpose, even amidst chaos, becomes a compass. Modern people drown in overthinking because they've forgotten this rule. You can't think your way out of chaos. You act your way through it. The Stoic doesn't debate whether to move. He moves, he doesn't ask. What if I fail? He asks. What if I remain unchanged? He knows that every small act done with discipline strengthens his inner order. The Stoics trained this muscle even in small things. Seneca fasted. Marcus wrote through exhaustion. Epictetus practiced silence under provocation. They are building strength through deliberate difficulty, because the Stoics knew that when chaos comes, and it always comes, it is too late to start training. You must already be forged. And this is the Stoic way: stillness of mind, movement of body. They didn't wait for calm, they brought it with them. They didn't hope for peace. They created it through acting with virtue even as the world burned around them. And this is the paradox. When you move right, chaos loses its hold. Because chaos feeds on hesitation. The more you wait, the louder it grows. But once you take a step, one purposeful, disciplined step, it weakens. The Stoic doesn't need perfect conditions to act. He acts, and that creates the conditions. When the world falls apart, the Stoic does what must be done. He helps, leads, builds, and heals, not because it is easy, but because it is right. And while others scream, he speaks softly. While others panic, he plans, and while others collapse, he stands. That is the quiet power of ordered action amidst disorder. You can't always control outcomes, but you can always control effort. You can't stop the storm, but you can always steer the ship. And in that simple truth lies total freedom. There is a truth most people never accept until life forces it upon them. Pain isn't the punishment. It is the purification. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't just survive pain, they used it. Every wound became a teacher, every loss a guide, every hardship a mirror. They knew the soul doesn't grow in comfort, it grows in friction. Epictetus was crippled by his master. The story says that his leg was twisted until the bone broke. He didn't scream. He only said, "You will break it." And when it snapped, he said, "I told you so." That wasn't arrogance. That was awareness. He had already accepted that pain was part of life's training. He refused to give it the power to define him. That is what true strength looks like. Not the absence of pain, but mastery over its meaning. Marcus Aurelius buried children, faced rebellion, lived through plague. And he still managed to write about gratitude. He wrote about waking up and choosing discipline, being kind in an unkind world, He never asked for mercy. He asked for resilience. He reminded himself the universe owed him nothing, and yet every day alive was a gift to be used well. Seneca was exiled, betrayed, ordered to take his own life, but he didn't curse his fate. He embraced it as his final lesson. Before dying, he told his friends, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." It sounds tragic, but it isn't. It is liberation. He had accepted life completely, including the suffering that came with it. The Stoic does not pursue a life without pain, but rather the mind that is free when it is around. Pain tests everything you claim to believe. It strips away illusions, your control, your plans, your identity. What is left after that is real. That is why hardship, for the Stoic, was sacred. It revealed what cannot be destroyed. The modern world fears discomfort like it is death. But comfort dulls you. It weakens your spirit, softens your will, makes you fragile in the face of reality. Stoicism isn't about rejecting joy. It is about rejecting dependency. Because when your peace depends on pleasure, you are at the mercy of pain. When your worth depends on approval, you are at the mercy of rejection. When your strength depends on things staying easy, you are already broken. So the Stoics trained for pain. They didn't wait for disaster to test them, they tested themselves. Fasting, cold exposure, silence, solitude. They practiced loss in small doses to prepare for the real thing. Seneca slept on the floor to remind himself that he could. He ate coarse bread and wore rough clothes, whispering to himself, "Is this what I feared?" The answer was always no, because fear dissolves in experience. When you face what you fear voluntarily, its power fades. When you lean into hardship with awareness, it becomes fuel. Pain stops being the enemy and becomes the teacher. It shows you what still controls you and what you've already transcended. Pain is not here to break you. It is here to show you how unbreakable you already are. The Stoics believe that the soul is like iron. It rusts without friction. Adversity polishes it. The blows you take now, the losses you suffer, the disappointments that cut deep, they're the fire that tempers your spirit. Without them you remain untested metal, shiny, maybe, but soft. The heat, the pressure, the forging, that is where real strength is made. So, when life throws you into chaos, don't ask, "How can I escape this?" Ask, "How can I endure this with grace?" That is the Stoic art, to meet pain with presence, to turn wounds into wisdom, to stand in the fire without losing yourself, because every hardship is sculpting you into something rarer. A person who doesn't need life to be easy to remain whole. Chaos will always be present. The world will always shift beneath your feet. Empires fall. People change. Plans collapse. But the Stoics left us with one unshakable truth. The only thing that must never fall apart is you. They didn't promise comfort. They promised clarity. They didn't promise peace without battle. They promised peace within it. That is what made them unbreakable. They faced everything, loss, pain, betrayal, and stood their ground. Not because they were immune, but because they were prepared. Marcus Aurelius wrote in the heart of chaos, not in peace. His meditations were not polished words for an audience. They were reminders to himself. When you wake up, tell yourself, the people you meet today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. And then he added, but none of them can harm me, because I will not let them. That is the heart of Stoic strength, the power to remain unmoved when the world shakes. You see, chaos isn't an interruption of your life. It is your life. It is the ground you stand on. It is the forge that shapes you. The Stoic doesn't wait for a peaceful world to build peace. He builds it inside himself so that when the storm comes, he doesn't need the world to cooperate. The Stoic rule for surviving chaos is not a single command. It is a way of being: control your perception, discipline your emotion, master your action, repeat again and again, until calm becomes your default, until struggle becomes your teacher, until life, no matter how unpredictable, can no longer take your peace from you. Seneca said, "To bear trials with a calm mind robs misfortune of its strength." Think about that. The chaos only has as much power as you give it. The moment you meet it with calm, it collapses. It feeds on the reaction and starves on composure. You win every time. Epictetus taught his students to laugh at fate, to take every twist, every loss, every setback as an opportunity to practice freedom. "What upsets people," he said, "is not things themselves, but their judgments about things." That is the ultimate freedom, the ability to suffer without surrendering your mind. And here is what they knew: chaos never ends, but you can transcend it. You can live in the noise and still hear your own voice. You can walk through fire and still remain yourself. You can lose everything and still stand tall, because the strength you build through chaos cannot be taken. It is yours forever. That is the paradox of the Stoic life. The world may break around you, but inside, you remain whole. The storms will rage, but you've built your foundation beneath the waves. The noise will grow louder, but your silence will grow stronger. You don't need to control everything, just yourself. One day, life will test you in ways you can't imagine. And when that day comes, remember this rule: chaos reveals the calm you've built. Don't run, don't rage, just breathe. Let the world move, let it fall apart, and know this: within you, there is something untouched, something eternal, because that is what Stoicism is. Not a philosophy for peace, but a blueprint for power. Not the power to dominate others, but the power to govern yourself. To be the calm eye in the storm, the silent strength in the noise, the fire that refines instead of consumes. So when chaos comes, and it always will, smile. It is not here to destroy you. It is here to show you that you are ready. The Stoic doesn't fear the storm. He thanks it. Because without chaos, there is no growth. Without struggle, there is no strength. Without pain, there is no purification. And at the end, when the dust settles, the one who remains standing is the one who learned to remain still.